Jill Biden married her first husband when she was just 18, though they divorced 5 years later. She did find the love of her life, however, proving happy endings do exist. You just may have to weather some storms first. While Joe Biden's 2020 presidential campaign was in full swing, Jill's first husband, Bill Stevenson, was speaking to the media, claiming his ex-wife cheated on him with Biden before their marriage ended.
I was betrayed by the Bidens. Joe was my friend. Jill was my wife.
He also said he'd be voting for Donald Trump. According to Stevenson, Jill first met Joe in 1972 when he was running for senator, and their friendship turned into an affair in 1974. Stevenson claimed to have proof that the now Bidens were having a relationship behind his back. Apparently, one of Jill's close friends confided in him that she was worried about Joe and Jill's relationship. Then Jill passed up meeting Bruce Springsteen with Stevenson in favor of babysitting Joe's kids. But his fears were supposedly confirmed when Joe and Jill were involved in a fender bender in which Joe was allegedly driving her car. He told Inside Edition that he confronted Jill about the outing with Joe.
She didn't say anything. She just looked at me. I said, "You gotta go. You gotta go get your own place."
Jill has a different story entirely, and her spokesperson told Inside Edition that Stevenson's claims are fictitious at best. One can't help but wonder how things would have turned out if Bill Stevenson didn't confront Jill about his suspicions all those years ago. Would they still be married today? Would Joe have married someone else? Was Jill and Joe's alleged affair even real? Those are questions we'll probably never have answers to, but Stevenson told the Daily Mail he wasn't surprised that Jill caught Joe's eye, saying, "Everyone who meets Jill falls in love with her immediately. It's hard not to." Stevenson claims Jill's family tried to intervene to save the couple's crumbling marriage, saying, "Her father was begging me to take her back when he found out what was going on. He asked me to give her a second chance, but I wasn't interested." As with most divorces, this one got a little messy. When it came to the settlement, Jill wanted a share of Stevenson's club, the Stone Balloon, but Stevenson refused. Eventually, the judge ruled in Stevenson's favor. After the divorce, however, Stevenson found himself facing charges of fraud and passing bad checks, and this time the court ruled against him. Whether his shady dealings had an impact on his and Jill's marriage isn't clear. No one goes into a marriage expecting it to end, and for Jill Biden, being a divorcee at the age of 24 was devastating. It was the mid-1970s, and divorce was far less common than it is today. Shortly after President Joe Biden was sworn into office, Jill sat down for an interview with Kelly Clarkson and spoke candidly about what life was like for her back then, saying, "I didn't know anybody who had been divorced. I felt like it was a failure on my part, and I lost my self-esteem because I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? Why couldn't I make this work?" She added that getting back to doing life on her own was no easy feat. She had to find herself again, and it took her over a year to get to a point where she felt okay to move on. As fate would have it, Joe Biden stepped into her life during this time. She told Clarkson, "Just unexpectedly, I met Joe, and I had met him once before, but it was kind of a blind date when he called me." Joe and Jill's love story is kind of legendary. Joe's younger brother encouraged him to ask Jill on a date. Jill canceled a date with someone else to meet up with Joe. Afterward, she reported back to her mother saying, "Mom, I finally met a gentleman." And the rest is history. At 24, Jill was divorced, heartbroken, and in real financial trouble. It was only when she no longer had the financial support of her ex-husband that she realized how much she depended on him. She didn't have a job and barely had a dime to her name. She still needed to finish university and no longer had a place to live. She hadn't foreseen the precariousness of her financial situation and swore that it would be the last time. She told Harper's Bazaar, "I knew I would never ever put myself in that position again where I didn't feel like I had the finances to be on my own, that I had to get the money through a divorce settlement."
When I set my mind to something, I find a way to get it done.
As hard as this period was for her, Jill was determined not to take the easy way out. She had the option to move in with her parents, but she wanted to make it on her own, broken heart and all. She confided to Harper's Bazaar, "I believed so much in the institution of marriage. When the marriage fell apart, I fell hard because of that." But she managed to pick up the pieces, and in the end, she paid her own rent and graduated from university with flying colors. It had been challenging, but along the way, she rediscovered who she was and what she wanted out of life. After her divorce from Bill Stevenson, Jill Biden went on a journey of self-discovery. As hard as life was on her own, she learned something about herself that she hadn't known. As she told Harper's Bazaar, "I am a woman who loves to work." She went on to explain that she realized the value of having her own career and pursuing her own dreams, saying, "I understand a woman's need to have something for herself." She added that she's made sure to always have a paying job, even after she married Joe Biden. In her memoir, Where the Light Enters, Jill admitted one of the reasons she was hesitant to get married again was that she was afraid it would mean giving up her career and newfound independence. She finally knew who she was, and she didn't want to lose that. Nor did she want to get her heart broken again. She wrote, "If I gave Joe my whole heart, he had the power to break it. What if he changed his mind? What if it didn't work?" In the end, she took the leap and managed to keep her career even while serving as First Lady. Jill was in no hurry to get remarried. She'd been so sure that Bill Stevenson was her forever person, yet their marriage only lasted 5 years. In her memoir, the First Lady recounts her whirlwind romance with Stevenson. The couple had barely known each other a year when they tied the knot. Jill wrote, "Looking back, it may seem like that relationship was a mistake of youth, but there was a time when I truly believed we were destined for each other." Naturally, Jill was hesitant to jump into another relationship. When she and Joe went on their first date, he fell hard. Jill, however, was extremely cautious. In fact, Joe had to ask her to marry him 5 times over the course of their relationship before she finally said yes. Jill wanted to be sure the marriage would last, especially because Joe's kids were involved, and they'd already lost their mother in a car accident. She told Vogue, "I couldn't have them lose another mother." Luckily, Joe is a very patient guy, and Jill finally said yes after he made it clear that the 5th proposal would be his last. While Joe and Jill Biden were hard at work campaigning for the 2020 election, Jill's ex-husband Bill Stevenson made headlines telling the media that he'd recently finished a memoir he intended to publish. Stevenson hinted that the book would shed more light on the alleged affair Jill had with Joe behind his back. In an interview with the U.S. Sun, he said, "The book will blow the lid off the sham story." Many saw this as a poorly disguised attempt by the Republican Party to deal a blow to the Biden campaign's image, but Stevenson was adamant that he wasn't trying to tank the campaign. He assured outlets that there was no lingering tension between himself and the Bidens. He did, however, admit that with all the attention focused on Jill and Joe, he felt it was an opportune time to speak up, especially because Biden was making character a campaign issue.
Everybody's saying, "Bill, you're being so mean bringing this up now." But if I don't do it now, it's never going to be able to be brought up.
In an interview with the U.S. Sun, Stevenson said, "It's not a bitter book, but it does have facts in it that aren't pleasant to Jill and Joe." Despite all his talk, Stevenson's book has yet to see the light. Jill Biden isn't someone who allows the past to determine her future. She chooses to learn from it and shares her hard-won wisdom with others. One lesson she's really worked to drive home is that a woman should do her best to be independent. Speaking to Harper's Bazaar, she said, "I drummed that into my daughter Ashley. Be independent, be independent. And my granddaughters, you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet." While making an appearance on the Kelly Clarkson show, Jill offered Clarkson, who was going through her own divorce at the time, some sound advice.
My mother always said to me, things are going to look better tomorrow. And if you can take one day at a time, and things will get better.
For her part, the First Lady has been very open about the struggles she faced after being divorced so young, and she's gotten pretty good at finding the silver lining in bleak situations. Jill realizes that her divorce from Bill Stevenson, no matter how hard it was, ended up being for the best. It's clear that she loves the life she and Joe built, and the lessons she learned have propelled her forward.
If I hadn't gotten divorced, I never would have met Joe. I wouldn't have the beautiful family I have now.
And let's not forget, she also wouldn't be America's First Lady if she hadn't met Joe.